I'm not interested in photo ops.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, June 7th, 2018. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, and ready to answer the phone when you call on in, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and so forth and so on. So let's get into it. And quick little program note. Yes, the lovely Lady Claire will be joining us in hour number 3 of our program tomorrow. And I know you're all looking forward to that. I'm getting all these emails expressing concern for how she's feeling. And, you know, she's doing better. It's going to take a long time, but she is doing better. And in fact, she has a doctor's appointment this afternoon after the radio show. And she's banned from housework until further notice. But she is getting better. I mean, when I look back on how she was when this first happened back in January, I mean, to me, it's very obvious she's doing a lot better. But more to go. And so I have to sort of keep her Velcroed to her glider chair in the living room so she doesn't, you know, rush around the house trying to do things she ought not to be doing. But that's where we are on that. Okay, getting into the news here. The other day we were reporting on this story where over in Syria, Bashar al-Assad had made a comment that it was time for the United States to leave, which is true, and that if the United States refused to leave, that Syria would basically start to remove the U.S. by force. Well, today the Pentagon has come on back saying that any attempt by Bashar al-Assad to remove the United States from Syria will be met with an armed response. So this is where we are right now. The United States has invaded Syria. They have military forces on the ground, military bases inside Syria. They are not there with the permission of the Syrian government. The Syrian government did not invite them. It is an invasion. And now the U.S. is saying they're going to stay. And any attempt by Syria to reclaim their territory from the U.S. invaders will be met with more force. That's where we are on this right now. So they're not even going to need to have a false flag chemical attack to escalate the war. All they have to do is say, you know, how dare Assad try and kick us out of Syria just because it's his country? What's wrong with this guy? What's he thinking? You know, he's acting like he's in charge of Syria. What a silly idea that is. I mean, really. It's amazing. Meanwhile, over in Israel, once again, they're pounding the war drums, saying that Israel will destroy Assad's forces if Israel is attacked, signaling yet another false flag and an escalation of hostilities from that direction. Because after all, Israel wants to keep the Golan. They've been occupying it since 1981. Nobody internationally recognizes the occupation or the annexation, although the U.S. is getting ready to do that. But Israel wants to keep the Golan because of all that oil and gas, and because Israel's idea of Middle East peace is we're going to take a piece of this Middle Eastern country, and we're going to take a piece of that Middle Eastern country, and we're going to take a piece of that Middle Eastern country over there. Because that's what they've been doing. Look at the history of the region. Look at the maps. Look what Israel has done to Palestine ever since Israel was founded. They just keep nibbling away, bit by bit by bit. So, I remember what that French ambassador said all those years ago. I think it was back in the early 2000s. I forget exactly when it happened. The French ambassador came under fire for asking aloud why we were risking a world war over that blank little country, referring to Israel. And everybody said, oh, you can't say that. You can't say that. It's anti-Semitic. Now, somebody has apparently leaked or declassified, actually it was a leak, this was obtained by WikiLeaks, a State Department cable from 2006 that lays out a plan to use terror attacks, intrigue, and the Kurds to destabilize Syria in order to replace Bashar al-Assad. So remember all that talk from the U.S. government about, oh, Assad, we have to go into Syria because Assad is gassing his own people. And that was followed by, well, we're not really at war with Assad. We have to go in because of the war on terror. We have to get ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And then after they were very obviously not actually bombing ISIS and Al-Qaeda, it was back to, well, Assad is gassing his people again. No, it was never either of those. It was just the U.S. wanting to regime change Syria, in keeping with that list of nations to be regime changed or conquered that Wesley Clark blew the whistle on all the way back in, well, about the same time. This is what the U.S. government is doing. The U.S. government is the aggressor here. And it is time for the American people to face facts. We're the bad guys this time out. And I know you don't want to deal with that, but we are. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network here. Up in Afghanistan, apparently in the aftermath of Charlie Wilson's war, the United States provided 40 Humvees to the puppet regime of Afghanistan. You know, Hamid Karzai, El Presidente de UNOCAL. And apparently, 40 of these Humvees have fallen into the hands of the Taliban. And so now the U.S. is going on out in order to destroy them, so that the Taliban doesn't have the advantage of having the Humvees. Now, the Humvees, the military version of the Humvee, costs about $70,000 each. So you, the American people, got to pay for all these Humvees, and you get to pay for blowing them all up. So, don't it make you proud to be an American? Apparently, the U.S. government's fallen into a time machine or a time warp. Maybe Doctor Who showed up with the TARDIS and took them all back to the 1950s or something, because once again, the United States is meddling in South America, and apparently, once again, the United States is equipping paramilitary police units in El Salvador accused of extrajudicially murdering suspected gang members. In other words, the death squads are back. And apparently this started actually back in 2003 under George W. Bush, where successive U.S. administrations have provided tens of millions of dollars in aid for Salvadoran military and police in support of the government's Firm Hand Security Program, which is an aggressive campaign to combat out-of-control gang violence in a country with one of the world's highest homicide rates. Well, I understand with the homicide rate that something does have to be done. But my issue here is that the U.S. government has things that need doing here in this country, like dealing with our gangs, like MS-13, rather than sending all this money down to El Salvador. It's El Salvador's problem. Let El Salvador fix it. We have problems in this country that are being ignored and neglected in this desire by the U.S. government to just run around the planet being the global policeman. You know, one of these days, you ought to take Google Earth and you ought to look at Washington, D.C. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is that a lot of the key buildings don't show up in the 3D building view, the 3D model view, because they don't want you being able to do calculations that might lead to doing something nasty. But get away from the monuments, get away from the Smithsonian, and get out into the city of Washington, D.C. itself and look at the condition of it. Look at the roads, the sidewalks. You know, when you get away from the government building areas, it's not a pretty picture. It's run down, like most other American cities. The U.S. government is really good about pounding its chest and posturing before the rest of the world about we're the greatest nation on earth, but they can't even clean up their own capital city. Anyway, as you know, we're coming up on the summit between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, and the pre-summits are going on. We know that John Bolton has been sidelined by Trump and Mike Pompeo for his very overt, heavy-handed efforts to try and derail this. We know that Trump has softened his tone a little bit, but we still don't know what's going to happen. Now, according to this article in Russia Today, they're asking that Trump may be setting up the North Korea talks to fail intentionally, so that he could come on back and say, well, the talks failed. The next option is military force. We're the good guys. Kim Jong-un is the bad guy. And so we can have another bloody war in good conscience, which, of course, is ridiculous. It's an absolute lie here. Meanwhile, we're seeing other regional powers start to insert themselves into this process. And basically, Japan's Prime Minister Abe is getting on into this to talk about this situation of North Korea having abducted some Japanese citizens about 40 years ago. Now, North Korea acknowledges they did this. They abducted these citizens to try and turn them into espionage assets, and apparently most of them said no and were kept in North Korea. The issue here is whether they're still alive or not. And if they are alive, should they be returned? So Abe is in there making demands on that issue. And Trump and Pompeo have promised they will address this issue when they get over there. Now, China is going to provide a fighter escort to Kim Jong-un's flight when he travels to Singapore to meet Trump. And this is not really because they're worried about somebody actually shooting down Kim Jong-un, which would be really stupid, but they're sending a message to Donald Trump and to Japan and to South Korea that China has got North Korea's back. That's the message they're sending. And this is where the U.S. government's belligerence in the South China Sea and relative to Taiwan comes back to haunt them. As you'll probably remember a few weeks ago, I was saying how dysfunctional our foreign policy had to be, because on the one hand, you had the U.S. asking China to help them with North Korea. At the same time, they were starting to make nice with Taiwan, which angered mainland China, and they were continuing to send all these warships around these islands in the South China Sea. Well, guess what? China has just signaled, no, they're not going to help the U.S. with North Korea. They're on North Korea's side of this issue. So our Secretary of State wasn't really doing all that good a job. Getting on over to Israel, it is I think rather interesting, rather gratifying, if you will, to see how much the outrage for the Bloody Monday massacre is continuing around the world. And we're seeing all kinds of articles in the independent media from all around the world denouncing what Israel has done and denouncing Israel's arrogance and chutzpah, trying to put the blame onto the Palestinians. So we have this article out of Information Clearinghouse about the Great March of Zionist Hypocrisy. Because what was going on here is a protest. The Palestinians were promised by the United Nations and by the brand new state of Israel that they would eventually be allowed to return to their homes and villages taken from them in the creation of Israel. Some 700,000 Palestinians were driven from their homes and villages, and they were told they would be allowed to return. In fact, one of the conditions of Israel's membership at the United Nations is the Palestinian right of return. And Israel's never complied. And now, today, many of those villages are gone. They have been bulldozed under and replaced with settlements or other Israeli infrastructure, highways, parks, airports, things like that. That's what's really going on here. And for Netanyahu to come on out and attempt to justify the shooting of these Palestinian protesters with these butterfly bullets, with the claim that the Palestinians were rushing the border in order to kidnap Israeli soldiers, is ludicrous. Anybody who's looked at the photos and videos knows that that's a flat-out lie. It's as egregious a lie as Netanyahu's nuclear duck, or his silly little cartoon bomb at the United Nations, or any of the other lies Israel has used to justify its criminal behavior for the last 7 years. And everybody sees it, and everybody is responding to it, except, of course, the U.S. government and the U.S. corporate media, which is only adding to their decline in credibility. Because nobody who is actually looking at what's going on in Israel and Gaza is going to be able to listen to the corporate media and the U.S. government's attempt to spin it without responding in complete and utter disgust. Another example of the articles coming out, another one from Information Clearinghouse, the brutality of the Netanyahu government has been shameful. And they're talking specifically about the killing of Razan Najjar, this medical volunteer who was shot with a butterfly bullet right through the chest by an Israeli sniper. And she was wearing clothing that identified her as a medical volunteer. This is obviously all coming down from the very top of the Netanyahu government. Now, Israel, of course, is out there trying to find anything that they can find about Razan Najjar to demonize her. Oh, she's a horrible person. She deserved to die. In fact, they've released a video that they claim is of this medical worker throwing a smoke bomb. There are only three problems with it. One, she throws it about 10 feet. Two, her face is covered. You don't know that that's her. I mean, she's wearing the same kind of clothing, but her face is covered. And in all the other photos that we've seen of her as a medical volunteer, she never covered her face. And third, there's nobody in the background where she's throwing the smoke bomb. In other words, she's throwing it into an empty field. It's a pathetic piece of propaganda. But that's what Israel does, because Israel has a 70-year history of lying to the world and getting away with it because of the support by the corporate media in many nations and the governments in many nations. But they can't get away with it any longer in the age of the internet and the independent media, and that's why they are lobbying very hard for nations that actually have laws protecting freedom of speech to carve out an Israel exemption. Yes, you could talk about anything you want to talk about, but you can't criticize Israel. Well, that's not free speech. That's permitted speech. And the danger of this is that if we allow the U.S. government to carve out an exception for Israel in that First Amendment, it won't be the last exception. There'll be an exception saying you can't question vaccine safety. You can't question GMO safety. You can't question what the government does, which is the very purpose of the First Amendment. This is an attack by Israel and its supporters on one of the most fundamental principles on which this nation was founded. And we cannot tolerate it. We cannot tolerate it. One other aspect that is really angering a lot of people is every time there's another one of these atrocities committed by Israel, you know, they'll blast anything they can find about the victim to make them look negative, but we never see the perpetrators identified. They're never on camera. They never have a microphone shoved in their face asking, how do they sleep at night after blowing a hole through the chest of a medic with a bullet that's illegal to use in wartime? We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're still talking about what's going on over in Israel and Gaza. And as I mentioned before, the corporate media is part of the problem. They are not reporting accurately on what's going on. They are just dedicated to this idea of demonizing the Palestinians and the Gazans and whitewashing everything that Israel does. And they have failed the public trust by doing so. Now, the reason the First Amendment was written, especially that part about freedom of the press, was to allow the press to report honestly on what is going on around the world and with our government. And with that gift of the First Amendment came a responsibility to do so. Our corporate media has totally sold out. They've sold out to Israel. They've sold out to Monsanto. That's right, I can't use that name anymore. They've sold out to whatever they're going to call the Bayer-Monsanto merger. They've sold out to big pharmaceutical corporations, the oil corporations. They've sold out to the war machine. They have betrayed the public trust. And nowhere is it more obvious than in the blatant bias displayed when they report on what's going on over in Israel and Palestine. If you want to know what's really been going on over in Israel and Palestine, you need to go to ifamericans.org. We linked it to the main page at whatreallyhappened.com yesterday. And it's run by Allison Weir, and she has been just doing amazing work over the years, just tabulating what's actually going on. And you go to that website and you'll see the actual numbers of who is killing who. If you look at the maps of Israel and Palestine since Israel's founding, you'll see for yourself who is wiping who off the map. So, it's amazing. It's disgusting. I have not been this disgusted with the corporate media since I tried to share with them my evidence on Vince Foster and was told to my face, no, we can't report on that. Over at Cal State East Bay, the Associated Students have voted unanimously on a resolution to divest from corporations that profit from the occupation of Palestine. In other words, BDS. And I'm sure that the local papers are going to be filled with all kinds of letters denouncing them as anti-Semitic. How dare they? They must obviously hate the Jews. And that argument is still being trotted out. I'm still getting emails about that. As you know, the U.S. government is considering a law to define criticism of the government of Israel as anti-Semitism. And we have to push back against it. The ACLU is pushing back against it. We're not criticizing anybody's ethnicity. We are not criticizing anybody's language. We are not criticizing anybody's religion. We are criticizing the behavior of the government of Israel. And we would be criticizing that behavior regardless of who that government is. So therefore, it is not anti-Semitism. Trying to dismiss criticism of the government of Israel's actions as anti-Semitism is like trying to brush off criticism of the Nazis as hatred of the German people. And you need to use that analogy because it illustrates just how silly this whole idea is. And it's on the verge of being turned into a law in this country. China has stood up on principle. I have to applaud them for this one. China is now refusing to allow its citizens to work in occupied Jerusalem. Israel apparently wanted to bring in Chinese workers to displace Palestinian workers because they seem to feel that the Palestinian workers really don't like their Israeli masters all that much. I don't know where they'd get that idea from, of course, but that's it. But China's saying, no, they are not going to allow Chinese workers to come in to occupy Jerusalem. I really do think that the Bloody Monday Massacre was Israel's version of Amritsar It has really turned world opinion against them. They've crossed a line. They can't go back over it. And what's worse is that all of these continued lies by Netanyahu, trying to justify this atrocity, which is exactly what it is, all the actions by people like Nikki Haley trying to protect Israel from the consequences of this atrocity, is just making it worse. Nikki Haley is undermining the credibility of the government of the United States of America by whoring herself to the government of Israel. We're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about what's going on over in Israel and Palestine. As you know, it is Ramadan, which is a Islamic holiday, which basically involves from dawn to dusk fasting. And so in order to not cause health problems, Muslims will get up at about 2 o'clock in the morning for a pre-dawn meal to get them through the day. So far, so good. And part of the tradition is that there are these Ramadan wakers who will basically wake up the faithful in Jerusalem's Old City. But unfortunately, Israeli police are starting to arrest them because apparently some of the Israeli settlers are now complaining about it. And that's become a thing as well, where Israelis are complaining about the call to prayer or anything else. And again, it gets on down to this argument over religion, over that imaginary playmate in the sky that is the cause of all this discord. One of the reasons I love the movie Kingdom of Heaven is that brilliant line at the end when Balian is getting ready to surrender Jerusalem to Salahuddin. And before the surrender, though, he says, if you try and take this city by force, I'll tear it down. Every rock, every stone, everything that drives men mad. And Salahuddin says, I wonder if it would not be better if you did. It's the best line in the whole movie. It really is. And if you think about just this little tiny area, this one little speck on the globe, and how much bloodshed and horror and death have come out of it. Just the sword, the lance, the axe, screaming masses, God wills it, God wills it, God wills it. It really is insanity. It really, really is. Over at the Knesset, there is a member, Ahmed Tibi, was talking about the murdered medic, Razan Najjar, and basically came on out and said Razan Najjar's shoe is worth more than Nikki Haley. And I can't find a reason to dispute that. We're probably going to get a lot of nasty letters from shoes over that one, though. How dare you equate us with Nikki Haley? So, getting on down to South America here, the U.S. media, the corporate media rather, is now openly calling for a military coup in Venezuela. They want Venezuela, one way or the other. They would love a popular revolution. That's not going to happen. The people actually like their government. They know it's not the fault of their government that conditions are so bad in Venezuela. It's the fault of outside meddlers, primarily the United States of America. So now the U.S. media is calling on the military to stage a coup and put in a new leader who will do what the United States wants to. Vladimir Putin, as you know, is doing a lot of interviews these days, and he's dropping hints about some additional weapons that weren't mentioned during the Russian State of the Union speech, where he basically unveiled all kinds of new weapons. And he was sending a not very subtle message to the United States that nuclear war is still unthinkable, so please stop thinking about it. But basically, the Mach 10 missile, the Kinzhal, is already in service with the troops. They have a battlefield laser already in use, and they're getting ready to go into regular production on the hypersonic Avangard system and the Sarmat ICBM. Now, the Avangard is a hypersonic glider system that flies at Mach 20 during final approach, during terminal phase coming in on its target. And that's already actually being manufactured. Now, Mach 20 That is very fast. In fact, it's only slightly less than orbital speed. The U.S. has nothing that can stand up to these things. I'm sure the Pentagon is going to come out to the American people and say, well, we could have, if you give us more money, we could have Mach 20 missiles, we could have lasers, we could have all this stuff, but you stingy Americans, you won't give us any more of your money. We have no more to give. And the U.S. government spends more on the military than the next 10 nations combined. It's not for a lack of money that these things aren't being done. It's because of corruption in the development and procurement process. What is coming out of the military-industrial complex for all of that money is junk. You know what I'd like to see? I would like to see this nation spend the tax money on our schools, our hospitals, and our infrastructure. And I'd like to see the Joint Chiefs out in front of the local supermarket with a table full of brownies, selling them to raise money for the next bomb. That is my idea of a well-balanced, just society. You know, buy a brownie, help us buy a new B-2. The German government has issued a statement saying that, as far as they can tell, the British authorities have provided absolutely no proof that Russia had anything to do with the poisoning of Sergei and Yulia Skripal. And interestingly enough, they are still being held incommunicado. Their family is not being allowed to meet with them. Russian diplomats are not being allowed to meet with them, and they are still technically Russian citizens. Over in the South China Sea, Taiwan is floating the idea of leasing one of their islands in the Spratlys to the United States. Now, the island is called Taiping. It's the biggest islet in the Spratly chain. It's technically controlled by Taiwan, though an international arbitration tribunal has ruled that it is merely a land formation over which no claimants are entitled to claim sovereignty. But Taiwan controls it, and now they're talking about leasing it to the United States for a military base with which to annoy and provoke China. All right. Let's talk about the domestic politics now. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Over at Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton is saying that from what he can tell about this coming Inspector General's report from the leaks, which are fast and furious right now, yeah, it's an expose, but it's also a cover-up. And I was expressing my doubts about it yesterday when they were talking about Comey defying authority and being insubordinate. That's nothing. That's a hand slap. And we already knew he was doing that just from what we could see. There's no meat there. Now, Sarah Carter is reporting that Inspector General Michael Horowitz is, in fact, being pressured from the Department of Justice and the FBI to change his report on how the Hillary Clinton email server investigation was handled. So his original report must have really been something. But the Department of Justice and the FBI don't want to look bad, even though they did bad. And apparently there is a lot of pressure. Joe DiGenova is saying that this IG report is being scrubbed by Rod Rosenstein to protect the Department of Justice. So by the time we, the American people, see it, it's going to be a bag of confetti, not much else. Now, as you know, Imran Awan and his wife are negotiating a plea bargain that will allow them to avoid a court trial, which means that all of the information about what was going on with the congressional computers will not be heard in open court. Trump has come on out tweeting, this is ridiculous because that server scandal is the key to Democrat corruption. I agree with him. Hillary's server and it's possible links to Imran Awan's pilfering of information off of congressional computers, I think that's the tip of a massive espionage iceberg. And it does need to come on out. Now, I can understand from the government's point of view why they don't want that to come on out. The reaction of the American people to a story that the entire Congress and State Department were running a surveillance operation on our own politicians, that's a government killer. That would delegitimize the government. They don't want you to know that these things are going on. They want you to think the government is doing a good little job. They want you to be happy little mushrooms and not question anything. They don't want you to know what's going on. But we have a right to know. This is our nation. The government is supposed to work for us. They're our employees, and they do not have a right to keep scandals away from us. We're not talking military secrets here, which have to be kept from an enemy. We're talking about government malfeasance being covered up, and that is not allowable in a free society. Judicial Watch has just come on out with a statement. They were given an additional 798 documents by the State Department from Anthony Weiner's laptop, and among them were an additional 18 classified emails from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's illicit email system. These are all Title 18 felony violations, and nobody wants to look at it. They're all obsessed with Donald Trump. Ooh, Donald Trump, did he collude with the Russians? Collusion isn't really a crime. Well, we'll make it a crime. We have to get Trump. Forget about Hillary Clinton. Don't look there. The more I see this absolute total stonewall regarding that email server, regarding Imran Awan, the more convinced I am that Hillary Clinton, while Secretary of State, was repeating the 1996 Chinagate scandal, selling U.S. secrets to foreign interests, using that weak email server to deliver the material, and that so-called charitable foundation to collect and launder the money. I think that's the heart of the scandal right there. And nobody wants that to come on out, because that means everybody in the government gets a pink slip, courtesy of the American people. Now, getting on back to Imran Awan and the plea bargain, it's bringing renewed attention down on Debbie Wasserman Schultz, because the plea bargain is all about this bank fraud case. And nobody has gone into what he was doing with the computers. But it's known that he was stealing computers and hard drives from Congress, that he had inappropriately accessed congressional computers. And what's really interesting is that after he was fired by these various congressmen that he was working for, Debbie Wasserman Schultz kept him on her staff at a pretty nice little salary, and kept him on the staff until he was actually arrested. And everybody is saying, why were you doing that? It's not like he was able to do any more work. He had lost his clearance to work on congressional computers. And Wasserman Schultz was saying, well, I had to do the right thing, which explains absolutely nothing at all about what's going on. But I think you'll agree with me. There is something going on here. There is some major, major scandal being covered up here. Far worse than Spygate, far worse than Watergate. I'm absolutely convinced Hillary Clinton was running an espionage operation out of the State Department, and Imran Awan and Debbie Wasserman Schultz may have been part of it. Over at the Department of Justice, they have finally decided that they're going to honor a request from lawmakers, and they're going to provide additional documents on the Spygate informant. This FBI's use of a spy as part of a counterintelligence operation on the Trump campaign. Now, remember, we ran this story, we talked about this story yesterday, where the apologists for the Department of Justice and the FBI are out there saying that really the reason they were spying on the Trump campaign was for his benefit, to protect him against Russian infiltration, especially Manafort. And Trump came on back and said, if you were doing this on my benefit and you thought Manafort was a problem, why didn't you tell me? Trump is saying he never would have hired Manafort if he'd been told that there was even a suspicion of a compromising connection. But the Department of Justice and the FBI did not tell anybody in the Trump campaign that there was a spy in their midst. And there probably was more than one. We know of at least two. Stephen Halpert for the FBI, and he got paid $1 million for doing this. That's a little out of the normal pay scale for a regular, ordinary investigation. And supposedly there was another spy working on behalf of the National Security Agency who has, as of now, unnamed. But the senior lawmakers are going to get these documents on the spy and find out what was really going on. And if, in fact, as it appears, the FBI and the Department of Justice and the NSA were spying on the Trump campaign and then later on the Trump transition, that is a scandal. They're not supposed to do that. It shows that the FBI and the Department of Justice have become highly politicized. They've become tools of whichever president is currently in the Oval Office. They've become the Gestapo and the SS in our current society. That's what they are, modern equivalents. We're going to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354, or visit MIG911.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
About 6 months ago, my wife bought Extendivite. She didn't tell me she was giving it to me. So after about 3 days, I said, maybe the weather's changed or something. I said, my legs feel really good. And she goes, well, I've been giving you this stuff, and it was the Extendivite. And you know that I'm about 75% better. I can actually climb stairs now, and I can get up out of chairs. I can even get down, and I got to work under a table or a computer table, and work on a computer. I can actually get back up off the floor. You know what? It's an amazing product. I can't believe, I didn't think anything short of having surgery was going to help.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Well, they're stealing down on Wall Street and in Washington too. No, it makes me wonder, what's a guy on Main Street to do? Always tried to be an honest, upstanding kind of guy. I must admit lately, I thought about giving something else a try. Oh, I want to be a pirate. I want to sail the 7 seas, yeah, I want to be a pirate.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. Now, interestingly enough, more attention is being focused on Samantha Power and the unmasking requests. During this whole Russia investigation, which went nowhere, Samantha Power made 260 unmasking requests during her final year in office. And that's a very high rate. It far surpassed her previous rate of unmaskings. And Power told the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence that others in government made the unmasking requests under her name. And James Clapper has now thrown her under the bus, saying that, no, he doesn't think that happened, that Samantha Power was responsible for all those unmasking requests. Now, apparently, again, getting on back to the spies in the Trump administration, the latest Strzok and Page texts do suggest that there were multiple spies targeting Trump officials, and that the FBI likely began the operation against Donald Trump in 2015. And what's really interesting is there was a story on Fox News just earlier today where top GOP officials are saying there's no evidence that spies were deployed against Donald Trump. Now, we all know how crooked the Democrats' campaign was in 2016. They stole that nomination away from Bernie Sanders. There was massive election fraud, illegal immigrants voting. But if you remember back when Donald Trump announced, the entire GOP establishment was against him. So maybe this spy operation against Trump was bipartisan, and maybe that's why we now have GOP officials coming on out and saying, no, there's no evidence of spies. Pay no attention to the spooks over there. Go back and look at Kim Kardashian or something. But apparently these texts go back to December 2015, basically approving what are called Oculus lures, counterintelligence lingo for spies operating outside of the United States. Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team is requesting that witnesses turn in their personal phones to inspect their encrypted messaging programs. No warrants, complete violation of the Fourth Amendment. But basically, according to CNBC, Mueller's team wants to examine private conversations on WhatsApp, Confide, Signal, and Dust. And apparently most of the witnesses, fearing a subpoena, have given over their phones. Well, folks, this confirms what we've been saying all along. Mueller's on a fishing expedition. He's just looking wherever he can to try and find something, anything, to justify the money and the time he's put into this Russia collusion investigation. We'll be right back after station identification.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Getting on back to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it looks like her misdeeds in 2016 are starting to come back to haunt her because down there in Florida, the Fraternal Order of Police, that includes Broward County, has dropped their endorsement of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And instead, they're endorsing a Republican candidate, Carlos Reyes. So we may see some dramatic changes. I think people are just getting sick and tired of liberalism in general. Apparently over in California, State Senator Josh Newman has been recalled for his support of an increased gas tax. People are tapped out. When you have constructed a society in which the rich are taking from the poor, sooner or later it's going to break down when the poor have nothing more to give. The high-paying jobs are gone. Everybody's working, or most people are working at minimum wage. Prices for everything are going up. Food is going up. Fuel is going up. Taxes are going up. Doesn't take a genius to realize this has an unhappy ending. But still, every time the government overspends itself, it gets into trouble. It says, oh, we'll have another tax. Newt Gingrich was on Fox News Hannity, and they were talking about Donald Trump attempting to rein in the deep state. And Gingrich said that with all the revelations regarding the Department of Justice bureaucracy's involvement in the 2016 presidential election, that the system is obviously more deeply corrupt than previously thought. And this is definitely one of the times when I agree with Newt Gingrich. It is hopelessly, irretrievably corrupt. And we're seeing that right now, where the Department of Justice and the FBI are still fighting tooth and nail to protect Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, the Hillary Clinton email server. They're still trying to put all the focus on Donald Trump's mythical Russian collusion. Yes, the system is corrupt, and we shouldn't tolerate it. We shouldn't accept it. We shouldn't say, this is the new normal. Now, as long as you have government, there's always going to be a certain degree of corruption, but this is definitely way over any reasonable limits. Apparently, on Twitter, Canada got very upset about Trump's tariffs and undertook to chastise Donald Trump, saying that Canada is not a threat to the national security of the the United States, at which point Trump tweeted back that Canada burned the White House in 1814. There's only a couple of small problems with that. Canada didn't really exist in 1814. It was another British colony. And the soldiers who burned the White House were British regulars. So a lot of people kind of got on Trump's case for that one. It's hard to think of Canada as a threat to anybody's national security. And I guess that's why Michael Moore, when he made his film Canadian Bacon, said, yeah, let's go up to Canada and say they're our new enemy. Because it was such a laughable idea. I mean, for anybody who's been to Canada, it's a beautiful place, and everybody's very polite. It's very clean. They're having their elections today. In fact, I got an email from somebody saying that the Liberals are not looking too good in that election, so we'll wait and see what the results are going to be there. Story out of Investment Watch blog, and this is very much alarming. Actually, the original source of the story is Russia Today, and it quotes an American economist, Lawrence Kotlikoff, as saying that the actual U.S. national debt is 20 times higher than the U.S. government admits to, meaning $222 trillion with a T dollars. That means we're in worse shape than Greece. Now, here is a story. This is from the Los Angeles Times. And again, it's a reminder that the corporate media's job is to lull you into a false sense of security, because the headline on this story from the Los Angeles Times, there are now more job openings in the U.S. than unemployed workers to fill them. Now, that is utterly ridiculous. But the purpose of this story is to make you think the economy is actually in recovery, and also to say that, hey, it's okay to let the illegal immigrants stay because we've got jobs for them now. And that's an utter lie. There are 90 million legal American citizens willing and able to work who have not been able to find jobs for months, if not years, because of a little bookkeeping trick they do over at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is that if you've been out of work for 3 weeks, you get moved to a different category. If you go over to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and you look at the labor partition rate, the participation rate, it's in the mid-60 percentile. The LA Times is just smoking opium with this story. Absolutely. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our honor affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Over at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Mike Mulvaney, who's the acting director, has fired the agency's 25-member advisory board Wednesday after some of its members criticized his leadership of the agency. And they had held a news conference criticizing Mulvaney for, among other things, canceling legally required meetings. So he just fired them all. A little bit of turmoil in Washington, D.C. And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is saying they will revamp the Consumer Advisory Board in the fall with all new members. So that's not going very well. Interesting little story here, Sputnik News. And to nobody's surprise, the Trump tariff war accelerates the disintegration of the Atlantic Alliance. And we have been seeing this for the last couple of days, where countries in Europe are saying, we've got to pivot toward Russia. And we just can't let the U.S. push us around any longer. Although, unfortunately, Europe's oil refiners have bowed to the U.S., and they are going to say they're going to stop buying Iran crude oil. And I have absolutely no doubt Iran will find other people to buy that crude oil from them. And as usual, these sanctions and tariffs are going to bring more harm to Europe than it will to the target here. The World Bank is out there warning that Trump's trade tariffs are plunging the world back to the 2008 crisis level. So pretty much everybody says this is a bad idea. Story coming out here about we're in a tech bubble again. If you look at the stock markets, the tech stocks are doing really well, but they're very much overvalued. And the actual numbers are that over 80% of IPOs last year had negative earnings. And some of them are just a breath away from bankruptcy, and yet you've got these sky-high valuations everywhere. And I think there's a reality that needs to be addressed here. Back in the early days of the tech explosion, right after the Apollo moon missions launched all of it, there were companies that started and became explosively successful overnight. Apple, Microsoft, companies like that. They had the field all to themselves. And it was all new technology and everybody was scrambling to buy it. But it's a very different investment environment today in that the industry has matured, it's plateaued, there's a lot of competition out there, and I hate to use the word stable given all the problems that we see in computers these days, but that's where the technology is. There are no new major breakthroughs on the horizon. There's a lot of refinements. We'll be talking about that later in the show. But they are just refinements of existing technology. There are no new breakthroughs. And as a result, you're not really going to see a return to the days of immensely successful overnight high-tech companies, unless there is a technology incubator front-ending whole new technologies with which to restart the sector. Over in Great Britain, critics of the British government are saying that Tory austerity measures are leading to a program of destitution by design. 1.5 million Brits are living below the breadline. 3.7 million are having to use the food banks. And according to the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, 1.5 million people, including 365,000 children, were pushed into destitution last year alone. And it was largely due to debt recovery at the hands of authorities and delays or sanctions on benefit payments. Now, destitution is defined as when a person has been forced to go without essentials such as shelter, food, heating, lighting, clothing, and footwear, or toiletries in the last month. But meanwhile, those refugees are getting all kinds of free stuff. Pound World is apparently going to appoint administrators. They're going into bankruptcy. 5,300 jobs are at risk there. And the move will allow the company 10 days to 2 weeks to continue talks with potential buyers without the company's creditors being able to make a claim on the business. And it's understood that investment company R Capital is in talks to try and buy Pound World, which has 355 stores. The House of Fraser is going to close 31 stores. And that will affect 6,000 jobs. The collapse of construction giant Carillon will cost British taxpayers an estimated £148 million, according to the National Audit Office. There will also be wider costs to the economy, Carillon's customers, staff, the supply chain, creditors, and so forth. The global economy is coming apart. The global economy is coming apart here. Now, as you know, because of the friction over Brexit, the European Union has disconnected Great Britain from the Galileo satellite program. Now, Galileo is the British equivalent of GPS. A lot of other countries decided they did not want to be dependent on the United States GPS system in the event of tensions or hostilities. And so now there are several of these systems that are out there. And the EU is building theirs called Galileo, but because of Brexit, they're kicking Britain out of it. One small problem they didn't realize that the Galileo depends on ground stations in the Falkland Islands and Ascension Islands in order to be able to work. Little bit of an oopsie there. I'm sure they'll work out some kind of a deal. Okay. Brussels is now basically saying the British have no place in the future defense of the continent, and they're getting ready to kick out key military staff, forgetting the fact that Great Britain was kind of sort of useful during these the first two world wars. But again, there's just this friction that's going on, and it looks like the EU is straining. It's factionalizing. We have all these countries that are talking about leaving, besides Britain. And as you know, Italy now has a Eurosceptic, anti-refugee government, and Germany's Der Spiegel is now calling the Italians ungrateful moochers. And they're saying that Italy is destroying itself and dragging down Europe with it. No, Germany is trying to basically recover from this EU disaster and open borders disaster. Europe is dragging Europe down. Actually, Brussels is dragging Europe down. The ECB is dragging Europe down. Obviously, Der Spiegel is very much on board with the one world government globalist agenda and is going to attack anybody who dares to suggest that they need to control their borders. Meanwhile, over in Germany, Angela Merkel was fielding questions at the first Parliament Q&A, and the Alternative for Germany party just asked outright, when are you going to resign? And basically, she's getting a lot of hard questions from both her coalition partners and opposition parties. Even her own coalition are challenging her. And again, Merkel is very much on board with that full globalist, one world government, new world order agenda here. The other day we were talking about this new policy by Immigrations and Customs Enforcement where families who are caught sneaking over the border are separated. The children are separated from the parents, and I guess the idea was to try and create a deterrent to people coming across the border. It didn't work because we're reporting on this story where they've run out of room to keep the kids. Well, the United Nations has now come on in and demanded the U.S. to immediately halt the policy of detaining migrant children. Well, yes and no. I think what the UN is suggesting is just let them go inside the country, because the United Nations is also on board the one world government agenda. What I don't understand is why these families are not just being turned back at the border. Once they're arrested, drive them down to the border, fling them over that fence, and send them back home. And then you don't have to worry about parents and children being separated. The UN doesn't have to worry about detaining migrant children. This is one of the things that Donald Trump promised he was going to do, and it appears that some progress is being made on the fence, and yet the illegal immigrants are still flooding on in, and it's going to impact the November elections unless something is done about it and done quickly. It really is an idiotic issue to have an open border, to just let everybody in. No nation in history has had an open border policy. There's always controls. Even in the heyday of American immigration, the Ellis Island, Statue of Liberty, give us you're tired, you're hungry, you're poor, struggling to breathe free. They still had to go through Ellis Island. They had to be checked for diseases. They had to be checked for their paperwork, make sure they weren't criminals. They didn't just let them walk off the ship and walk into the country. It doesn't really work that way. Now, of course, we've got the Secretary General of the United Nations is out there saying that the West just has to get used to mass migration. That's just what's going to be happening. No, we're seeing a lot of countries like Italy. We're starting to say, no, we reject that idea. It's not our problem. You say that all these migrants are war refugees, then stop the wars. All right. So it's a serious problem, and I know that Trump appears to be doing something about it, but it doesn't appear he's doing enough and fast enough. Anyway, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And again, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Up in Toronto, Canada, like so many other cities, crime is on the increase. And there has been a 167% increase in gun crime in Toronto this year. Thank goodness Canada has strict gun control. Absolutely. All right, let's take a phone call. Francis in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha to you both.
Aloha.
Let me preface the initial political aspect with an initial response to a article or situation that occurred that you mentioned about, I think yesterday or the day before, about the boys having to wear a skirt, which should have been labeled as a kilt or whatever.
Yes.
A school somewhere, I guess, obviously in another country, let alone here in the U.S. I'm just trying to figure out one thing. Instead of having the fellas wearing a kilt, why not have them just having the gals wearing slacks like they usually do?
Well, that was my question. Why not have the girls wear shorts as well if you really want a gender-neutral outfit? Because let's be honest, skirts are not gender-neutral. And I don't know what's going on here. I mean, there's an attack on masculinity, and it's almost like the LGBTQ, BFD, PDF, whatever, community wants to erase the straights from the pop culture. And it does seem all of a sudden that we're under attack here, those of us of a heterosexual nature. And as I said earlier in the week, you know, if the gay community wants to be accepted, fine, I accept them. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, but when they push forward and try and remake the entire society, including the heterosexuals, look just like them, they're going to meet resistance. There's no question about that.
Well, you know something, as far as this whole thing about LBGG, blah, 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 alphabet soup, wines, whatever have you, which is getting to be absurd,
Yes.
They're only shooting themselves in the foot by trying to press other people around them to do what they want them to do.
Yes.
They are not going to erase heterosexuality, period.
Nope.
The only people that are going to erase themselves like that are people who are heterosexual that do things to affect their own health, period. As far as another group trying to affect another group and all that, you know, like I said, they're shooting themselves in the foot. But to me, it's a complete joke. I mean, I have no problem with if I run into someone who is transsexual or bisexual or gay or lesbian or whatever have you. You know, you're not in my bedroom. Have your fun or whatever. Just leave me alone.
Yes.
We can get along fine.
Yep.
No issue, no problem. But the moment you start telling me what I should be doing, I'm sorry, you're going to get a good swift kick, no matter what's between your legs. Period. Or let on your chest. So,
well, you know, we're not getting into this idea of personal violence here, but I'm just talking from a pragmatic political point of view.
No.
In terms of social, acceptance.
Yeah.
Again, it's one thing to want to be accepted, and they are, and quite another to literally go on the attack against heterosexualism and masculinity by forcing these school boys to wear skirts and calling them skirts as well. And that is not gender neutral. It doesn't matter what the school says. Having these boys wear these skirts and calling them skirts instead of kilts, that is definitely not gender neutral.
Well, one quick thought about, and as far as that goes, before I go to the next point I was really originally calling about was, what about the gals? I mean, what about how they feel? How do women feel about this whole issue? That's a bigger question, because it seems like, oh, the males are being attacked this way and that way from Sunday morning till noon or whatever, dawn the next day.
Yep.
What about the gals, what they're going through? I mean, they're just as much going through a lot of issues as the males do. I mean, they're not exempt from any of this. But yet there's more emphasis on, well, the dude's got to, having to be attacked or whatever for this reason or that reason. So enough about that deal. When you said about the refugee scenario and whatnot, it reminded me of a chat that I had with one young man at a convention, And he talked about how refugees are coming in and they're doing this and doing that. And I said, well, you know, sweetheart, let me give you a quick thought for you. If the government structure and the military in this country did not go and start attacking in another country and annihilating the homes and businesses of those people in that country, then we wouldn't be having people coming from another country over here, as you call a refugee or whatever, and getting supplied with who knows what that you're not getting supplied with. So you know what? You're shooting yourself in the foot by complaining about it. If you want to complain, then get after your government and get after your military about it.
Okay, Francis, hang on the line. We got to take another break for commercials, and I want to come on back and talk to you about this issue. We'll be right back after these commercials.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Francis in North Carolina. And Francis, I know that we've all been told that we must open our borders to these refugees because they're fleeing these war-ravaged areas, and many of them certainly are. But this mass migration is being encouraged by the globalists with the idea of literally erasing regional differences and just having one planet where no matter where you go, the architecture is the same, the population demographics are the same, the culture and religions are all the same ones, just repeated over and over again. And that's why you have the UN pushing for all of this. Even if there wasn't the war issue, you've got people like George Soros who are spending huge amounts of money to encourage these refugees to pour into Europe and into the United States.
Well, then, I know I'm going to probably ruffle some feathers with my commentary, for that matter, which is fully expected, and I don't expect otherwise. But you know something? When you have people like that exude an absurd amount of money that could be used for other constructive and healing purposes, of that matter, mind you, then how is it that the U.S. government and military do not take such individuals and throw them into prison, if not a federal prison for that matter, for, shall we say, what's the federal crime for bribery and that kind of thing, ad nauseum and so forth? And on top of that, the UN telling the U.S. what it should or should not be doing. Excuse me, but since when did the UN override the Constitution Bill of Rights to start with? Tell me that.
Well, absolutely it does not. There's actually a part in the Constitution that the globalists like to cite all the time where it says a treaty arrangement with another country is the highest law of the land. What they neglect to do is give you the next sentence, which says, as long as it does not conflict with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The reason people like Soros and Bill Gates do what they do and are able to get away with it is twofold. One, they've got enough money to basically buy the politicians. And two, they've got enough money to hire lawyers to basically drag any litigation out until after they're dead.
Well, there's that too. Hence the reason why I'm thinking that if and when, which I wish it would, the U.S. government would collapse at the same time that the Israeli government and military collapse. That way, the rest of the world can start all over again and do what they need to do without a bunch of morons sticking their nose up their tail and saying, well, you need to take out this party and take out that party and so forth, and here's how much we're going to give you for doing it. Excuse me, but who's the pimp and who's the prostitute here?
Yes.
So once those two governments and military collapses, I think the world will be a lot better shape. And I know a lot of people are going to find fault with that, and that's fine. But I'm just getting perturbed with the whole garbage of the whole mess. It's making me sick. Anyway, I'm out of here. Later.
All right. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. I think a lot of people are getting very upset with what's going on. My concern is that just as the fall of the Western Roman Empire triggered the Dark Ages across Europe, that the fall of the American Empire might signal a new Dark Ages. And actually, if you look at the escalating religious extremism and violence that is taking over the world, we might already be in it. We just don't recognize the symptoms. You know, it's not like somebody gets up on the news and says, today starts the new Dark Ages. Okay, news on Fox just came on through. Apparently, Donald Trump has once again flipped on North Korea. He's going back to the hardline stance of immediate and total denuclearization. Apparently, he's being encouraged to do this by Japan, and he's not going to get it. He's just not going to get it. Over in Scotland, in Charlottetown, it is snowing. Yep, it is snowing. And I think it illustrates that snow that has been hitting Newfoundland a few days ago and 2 weeks before that wasn't really a fluke. That we are, in fact, going into a new Maunder minimum, or a grand solar minimum, and we are beginning to see the start of a new little ice age. And that all that human-caused global warming nonsense we were getting from Al Gore and the so-called educational channels was a lot of junk. It was fear-mongering. It was all about getting you to pay carbon tax and buy carbon credits. It was about letting some global environmental authority tell you how to run your life. This is June. June. And it's snowing in Scotland. So we're seeing all these articles start to come on out in science journals by environmentalists or climatologists who are not on the payroll of the global warming scam. And they're starting to report on how things really are going on. There was record thick ice in May, icebergs, heavy snow, blizzard conditions. Now, the southern hemisphere, of course, is cooling because we're heading into their winter. And it'll be interesting to see just how cold it gets on down there. But very obviously, human-caused global warming was a myth. And you look at all those corporate media stations, channels, networks, whatever, that took part in that lie. Just stood up there and shamelessly lied to you and said, this is Al Gore. He's a former vice president. You've got to listen to him. The world is warming and it's all your fault. Don't you ever get sick of being lied to? Don't you ever get sick of being lied to as much as you are lied to? Because right now, from where I sit, Americans are the most lied to people on the face of the planet. And it is disgusting. All right. Story coming out of Underground Health Reporter. They may have found a new culprit regarding Alzheimer's disease, which, as you know, is a degenerative neurological disease of the brain. And they may have found another cause for it. It's known that aluminum will cause Alzheimer's, which is why people are concerned about aluminum being used as an adjuvant in vaccines. But I guess there's big money in treating Alzheimer's. But the new villain is aspartame. Now, a lot of people are already avoiding aspartame. They've been linked to brain damage. Aspartame is a excitotoxin, causes neurological damage all on its own. It's a headache trigger, migraine trigger. It can actually make you gain weight. And in fact, that's why when I started my weight loss program, that was one of the first things I got rid of, the aspartame. But aspartame is the #1 cause of side effect complaints to the FDA. 10,000 different complaints, 91 documented symptoms. And the FDA will not remove its stamp of approval. Aspartame was politicked into approval. Originally, before it was approved as an artificial sweetener, it was classed as a chemical weapon. And now they're saying there is evidence to support the idea that people who are ingesting aspartame run the risk of Alzheimer's, an increased risk of Alzheimer's. Now, yesterday we were talking about the fact that NASA was sort of teasing a great announcement today. What were they going to find? What were they going to find? And, well, the expectation greatly exceeded the experience because they had their little press conference early today. And basically what they found was some organic molecules, hydrocarbons, the basic building blocks of life. And they found it inside a 3.5 billion-year-old red planet rock. And NASA is still saying these results do not give us any evidence of life, but obviously these chemicals were there. If there had been life, these chemicals would have been there to support it. So it's another NASA yawner. The only really good thing that's coming out of this is that Curiosity has vindicated the results that we got on Viking by confirming, in point of fact, that the GCMS negative result for organic molecules was a false negative because of the perchlorates in the soil. So now it stands as this. Vikings LRE indicated biological activity in the soil, and Curiosity has confirmed there are organic molecules in the Martian soil. Now, when the Viking mission was put together, those two positives were supposed to be indicators that there was life. But NASA is still being timid and hesitant, and maybe, could be. I know what's going on here. If they come on out and say, yes, we've confirmed there's life on Mars, they may get one more mission out of it to actually go and see what it looks like. But after that, everybody's going to say, well, we've been to Mars, we found that there's life, and that's that, no more money. But as long as NASA keeps saying, maybe, could be, sort of, ought to be, not sure, they keep getting new missions, more money. So, and again, as I've said, both on the show and in my article about Dr. Levin, confirmation of extraterrestrial life will be a socially transformative event. And maybe the reason NASA is just kind of lowballing it or slow walking it is to just get everybody gently acclimated to the idea that, yeah, there's life throughout the entire universe. But it will change our world in a very profound way. If you're in Oklahoma City, you might want to be getting up someplace high and dry. They're under a flash flood emergency watch over there. So you might want to be taking some steps to deal with that. All right, so let's talk about our volcano because it's still volcanoing, and huge amounts of lava still coming out of Fissure 8. A lot of people are waiting to see what's going to happen at Kilauea Crater following the collapse of the crater floor and the blockage of the conduit and the collapse of the southeastern wall of Kilauea Crater. And in the past 30 days, there have been 12,000 earthquakes around that volcano. And no signs of stopping. There was another fairly large one early this morning. As I mentioned before, Green Lake, completely gone, obliterated. Kapoho Bay, completely obliterated. A lot of homes obliterated. They're still trying to get some of those stragglers out there who refuse to leave with the helicopters. And all we can do is wait and watch and see what's happening. But I got to tell you, it's a lot worse down in Guatemala. Over in the Fuego volcano, 75 dead, 200 plus missing, massive evacuations underway. Both in the case of Kilauea and Fuego, you get eruptions all the time on a regular basis, but these eruptions are just much, much larger than would normally be expected in both cases here. Over at Yellowstone, people are getting very nervous about that supervolcano because of what's called the Steamboat Geyser. Now, as you know, Yellowstone has got geysers all over the place. The most famous one is called Old Faithful. Now, when I was a kid and we visited Yellowstone, Old Faithful really was faithful. It was on a regular schedule. Then there was an earthquake that disturbed the rocks, and it's not quite so faithful, but it erupts on a regular basis. But there's another geyser called Steamboat, which is actually a larger geyser than Old Faithful, but it can take a very long time between eruptions. And all of a sudden, it's erupting a lot. It has erupted 8 times since March, after being silent for nearly 4 years. And that is causing a tremendous amount of concern for scientists, trying to figure out if something has happened to the plumbing underground for Steamboat, or if in point of fact there is more heating coming up from the magma chamber under the Yellowstone supervolcano. And with all the volcanoes that are volcanoing all around the world right now, people are understandably concerned. I mean, compared to the Yellowstone supervolcano, what we're seeing in Guatemala and Kilauea, what we saw at Mount St. Helens, are nothing. When Yellowstone erupts, and it's only a matter of time, it will pretty much wipe out the western side of the United States and a significant portion of Canada as well. So, good reason to be concerned about what's going on there. But again, may not happen for 1,000 years. Nobody really knows. Nobody really knows. Nobody knew the Guatemala volcano was going to cut loose. Nobody knew that Kilauea was going to cut loose, certainly not to the degree that it has. And we just look at the instruments and we just wait and see what's going to happen. But they are expecting there's going to be a new, very explosive event at Kilauea because that pipe is now obstructed and pressure is building up behind it. If you look at the tilt meter data, it's definitely deforming, which indicates there's more lava coming in underneath it. So we'll see what's going to happen with that. Okay, we're going to be coming up here on a commercial break real soon. We're going to come back and talk about computers. I really do need some phone calls. We've had like, what, 1, 2, and I normally set up my talking points to allow for a certain number of phone calls. So 800-313-9443, and we'll get you on the air and we'll have ourselves a little discussion, because otherwise if I run out of talking points, it's going to be polka music for the rest of the show, and I know you don't want that. So we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
My name is Don Wiskin, and at 42 years old, I suffered a massive heart attack, lost 35% of my heart to damaged tissue, and was supposed to spend the rest of my life on disability. What did I do? I took Extendivite, a garlic and cayenne mix of 7 herbs which rebuilt my heart and gave me back my life. For over 17 years now, I have made this formula available to you, so you don't have to suffer the same thing I did. Clean your blocked arteries and strengthen your heart and boost your natural immune system. I'm 60 years old now and I still work every day. To get your Extendivite, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com. Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay.
And aloha America, welcome back to the show, and the phone lines are loading up. Thank you very much for that. But before we start taking phone calls, story just came on in from the Political Insider, and as you know, there's been talk of Donald Trump firing Jeff Sessions for basically not doing much of anything. And he's even said that had he known that Sessions was going to recuse himself from this Russia investigation, he wouldn't have appointed him as Attorney General in the first place. So there's a lot of talk about a replacement, and Political Insider is saying that Fox News host Judge Jeanine is in the running to be Jeff Sessions' replacement. And she's in regular contact with Donald Trump, and she doesn't like Jeff Sessions primarily because he didn't have the guts to go after Hillary Clinton for her illegal activities. So that would be interesting. Would be interesting to see what the confirmation process would look like, because I can imagine there are a lot of people in Congress who do not want Hillary touched, because she'll take them down with her. All right, let's go to the phones now. John in Phoenix, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. How you doing, bud?
Doing fine.
All right. Good to hear. I have a funny story. I was in Walmart, and I was going to buy some spirulina. It's actually a good mental health medicine. It detoxifies the pineal gland.
Yes.
There's a whole mystique behind the pineal gland. The ancient Egyptians called it the third eye. Jesus called it the lamp of the body. Descartes called it the seat of the soul. The Dalai Lama called it the spiritual antenna of the brain. Well, anyways, I couldn't find it, so I went to customer service, and they called the pharmacy manager over, and we're walking over, and I was like, I'd be surprised you're out of stock because not many people know about it. She's all, no, actually, a lot of people shoplift it. So I'm thinking, you know, the government's forcing the people to pay for these psychiatric drugs that cause strokes, blood clots, suicides, and mass shootings. So people are just getting fed up and just saying, hell, then I'm just gonna shoplift the good mental health medicine then.
Well, I can understand why Walmart all of a sudden is pushing for the maximum possible jail sentence for shoplifting, because, I mean, you shouldn't do that. I don't think it's that expensive. I think Claire takes it. I mean, she's got this whole cabinet full of vitamins and supplements, and I think that's one of them that she has on the list. But you're absolutely right. We're in the grip of for lack of a better word, a conspiracy between the government and big pharmaceuticals to take away our right to medicate ourselves, especially with anything we can make for ourselves or grow for ourselves, and mandate that you will buy medications from the pharmaceutical corporations, especially vaccinations. And it doesn't matter that the vaccines are ineffective or in some cases harmful. It's all about getting more money out of that population.
I just kind of feel sorry for the Walmart employee. He might miss out on his next raise if this keeps going on. If people just steal it too much, I don't know what happens. You know, it's.
Well,
I'm not a taxpayer myself, but I can almost see getting to a point where, you know, if I was a taxpayer and they forced me to pay for all these toxic crap, that I would just say, hell, I'm going to steal the good stuff.
Okay, well, listen, John, thank you for the phone call. We got to let you go for station identification. We'll be back with more phone calls after these few words.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, the history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We've got callers on the line here. And apparently the Inspector General report on the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server will be out on the 14th. But as we reported earlier in the program, apparently there are efforts to soften it, water it down, basically protect the Department of Justice and the FBI, because image is everything in the United States, and we've got to make them look good here. All right, so let's get back to the phones here. John in Austin, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. If I could, I'd like to pick up where I left off yesterday, talking about Netanyahu's meeting with Theresa May.
Yes.
I finally tracked down a little clip to get the rest of his comments, and he's saying the fundamental goal of Hamas is to destroy Israel. And I thought that was a bit of a silly thing to say. When you look at a map of Palestine in 1948,
yep.
I mean, you look at a map of what is now called Israel, Hamas are doing a pretty crappy job, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. But then, Netanyahu, Israel's always saying their enemies want to destroy them. They're always trying to revive that myth of Nazi Germany wanting to wipe out all the Jewish people. And it was a myth. The Nazis wanted to give the Jews Madagascar, presuming that they had won that part of the war. But, remember when they were out there screaming that Iran wanted to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth, and then it was Egypt, and then it was over here, it was Iraq, and so forth and so on. But, yeah, that's part of their standard propaganda toolkit.
Oh, yeah. Well, he dropped another few doozies here. He says, we are not witnessing peaceful protests. These people, in addition to burning our fields, are being paid for and pushed by Hamas. Now, how many videos? Probably like me, you've seen several of these videos where the Israelis are destroying Palestinian olive groves.
Yes.
And not only that, but hell, bulldozing their houses.
Yes.
Coming up to their families' houses and get out, and 5 minutes later, they start bulldozing it. I mean, this guy he's beyond the pale. Now, let me try and carry on here. They want to kill as many Israelis as they can and kidnap our soldiers, which was the point I was able to share with you yesterday.
Yes.
And that's an Oscar winner, that kidnap our soldiers. What the hell are they going to do with a bunch of Israeli soldiers when they kidnap them? Are they going to put them on eBay? He says this is not just a non-violent protest. We are doing everything we can to minimize casualties. Yeah, right, Bibi. And at the same time protect Israeli lives. So, now, the caller after me yesterday, I heard her mention Max Blumenthal. Now, I don't know if you've seen this movie that he co-produced with another guy whose name escapes me at the moment, Killing Gaza. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Oh my God! I watched it last week, Mike. Is that heartbreaking or what?
It is heartbreaking.
Ay, ay, ay. You know, I found myself living in Northern Ireland back in 1969 when the Trouble started.
Yep.
As a result of my parents splitting up, my mother wanted to go back to Northern Ireland, and I went with her. Now, fortunately for me, I only lived there for 2.5 years, but the Troubles went on for 30 years.
Yes.
Now, the Troubles in Northern Ireland, like a Sunday school picnic compared to what is happening here in Palestine. And it's, oh man, here, before I forget again, you know the day they had the Israeli or the American embassy deal in Jerusalem there? What was it, about 4 weeks ago?
Yes.
I was sitting here listening to you, and I noticed my Facebook page started filling up with these videos about what was going on at Gaza, and then all of a sudden this one came down, and it was a split screen with the little ceremony in Jerusalem, and on the other side of the screen, the goings-on at Gaza. And the next thing I know is I've passed out, and apparently what happened was my blood pressure shot up so high that I passed out, and I ended up being taken to the emergency room at the hospital here.
Ouch.
And later, yeah, they released me after about 3 or 4 days, and I went back the next morning. They had to put a pacemaker in my heart.
Oh, man.
So, yeah. I don't know. I don't know why I feel the way I do about this. It's just the injustice and the horror and the lies and the deceit and the fact that I live in a country that supports this, that finances it. Yep. I can't wrap my head around that. I can't use the kind of language I'd like to use on the radio to vent my feelings, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I
now,
do
here's
know.
a little doozy for you.
Thank you for the restraint.
Have you heard of a thing called the... You're welcome. Have you heard of a thing called the Eurovision Song Contest?
Oh, yes.
All right. Now, did you know that Israel won it this year?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's always tickled me. How the hell does Israel qualify for a European song contest?
Well,
anyway,
it's
been
a
in it
mystery there, but the real complexity is the way the Eurovision rules are set up. Whichever country wins it this year hosts it next year. So the Eurovision contest is going to be held in Israel next year, and there are already a lot of artists and countries who are saying they're going to boycott it. That they're going to boycott Eurovision because of what's been going on in Gaza.
Yeah. Did you hear about the parody? Somebody on a Dutch TV show did a parody of that song.
Yes.
And the Israeli government complained to the Dutch government.
Yep.
How childish and petty is that? Eh?
They are childish and petty. You know, for 70 years, Israel's government has never once been chastised for anything that they do. So, yes, they've evolved to be the equivalent of a spoiled brat. And they just say whatever they want to say, like this ridiculous idea that, you know, the Gazans were rushing the fence to kidnap their soldiers because up until recently, up until the age of the internet, they could get away with it. Corporate media would not, you know, correct the public. They're just used to that. Now, of course, they're very upset that they've made this major blunder. 2 of them, actually. First of all, the Bloody Monday massacre, and then shooting this Palestinian medic. And the optics on it are really bad. And the more they come on out with this ridiculous stuff about how, you know, Hamas is trying to destroy Israel and Israel is fighting for its life and everything, people are just getting fed up and disgusted with it. And it's time for this to stop. Planet Earth cannot tolerate a totally out of control rogue regime, especially one based on fanatical religious principles and armed with nuclear weapons.
Yep. Well, I think I'm starting to sense a turn in the tide here. More and more people are waking up, and I'm seeing demonstrations worldwide. So we can only hope for the best, eh?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the good news again, you know, CNN's out there trying to defend Israel, and their ratings keep going down. They just keep going down. John, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go and switch over.
Okay, Mike. Cheers.
All right, we're going to switch over to Chuck in Well, first of all, we're going to do a shout out to our honor affiliates who are rejoining the network. And now we're going to go to Chuck in Texas. Aloha, Chuck. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Chuck, are you there? Okay, I'm not hearing Chuck. Let's try Terry in California. Aloha, Terry. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I remember a few years back when Israel was dropping white phosphorus on the Gaza.
Yes.
They're using cluster bomb, something you don't use on in a civilian area. And Judge Goldstone from South Africa came in, got all the facts, interviewed everybody, and came out with his report saying Israel was guilty of waging war on civilians.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden he disappeared, and then he resurfaces saying, I really didn't mean that. That's not what I really meant. It's not true. So people are just baffled about how they got this power to be able to change people's minds like that, they can change their minds, obviously, but they put pressure on them to change their story to the world.
Yes.
Where do they get this power?
They've got a lot of money. They've got the Mossad. They have a long history of killing people. There was a young Jewish Israeli filmmaker named David Cole who actually did his own documentary about Auschwitz, pointing out how the archaeological remains there don't support that Orthodox story of the Holocaust. And he came out with it, and it was a very well done film. And then all of a sudden, years later, he came on out and said he didn't mean it, that yes, the Holocaust happened. Again, if Israel takes a shot at your family, you're going to change your story.
Yeah, well, you remember Marlon Brando, he told the truth about who owns the movie studios.
Yep.
And the next day he came out crying on TV, apologizing for making that statement. Do you remember that?
I remember that one. Well, Hollywood is under the control of Israel supporters. And if you dare say anything bad about Israel, you're out of a job, you're out of a career. And everybody in Hollywood knows that's what's going on. Now that I'm not in the film industry anymore and don't really care about it, I can say that, there are a lot of forces at work in Hollywood to keep the entertainment industry in line politically. And it's not just Israel, it's also the FBI, CIA, Operation Mockingbird, and of course the financial backers and sponsors. Everybody's in there saying, you will make this movie, you will not make that movie. And anybody who speaks out of line, they lose their career.
Yeah, well, Judge Goldstone documented everything. The facts speak for themselves. You can't tell the truth, obviously, because, all he did was saying, look at the evidence and you draw your own conclusion. These are my conclusions, but, these are the facts, too, to go along with it. So you wonder how, somebody of that stature, Judge Goldstone, he's got nothing to lose. I mean, he's not an actor. He's not, you wonder what goes on behind the scenes and why can't that nut be cracked? And, if we could only get the truth about what happened to these people, what kind of pressure were they under? Who threatened them? What happened? But we never hear about that.
No, we never hear about that. Again, there's a very dark world behind the facade. And again, if push comes to shove, they threaten somebody with assassination to get them to change their story. And there are very, very few people who are willing to risk being assassinated for the truth. And that's just, unfortunately, a sad story, commentary on the human condition.
Yeah. Paul Craig Roberts, he had a question about, why these people follow this globalist agenda. And the guy that he was working for said it's money bags. Pure and simple money bags, coming to these people. Like by people in the world. I don't know. Is that the deal with Merkel and all the people that are leading their own nations down the dark path? I mean, like Sweden and all these countries, you know, that do these things that don't make any sense.
No, it's not just the money. It's their dream that one day, if they can bring about a one world government, that they will be part of it, that they'll be able to dust the seat of that golden throne of planet Earth with their own bottom.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's all clandestine, behind the scenes. Nobody can, talk about what goes on behind the scenes, and most people don't know anyway to talk about it. Anyway, that's all I had. I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Dennis in Indiana. Aloha, Dennis. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Mike, I just heard on another radio station 2 days ago or 3 days ago, they said that about the volcanoes, they said it's either the surface of the ocean or on the floor of the deepest part of the ocean. And it's down 16 miles from one of those two places. It's so hot down there in the core of the earth that they can't even measure it. It's so hot.
Well,
I heard on another
the mantle is about 2,000 degrees. Now, the center of the Earth is assumed to be about the same temperature as the sun, but nobody really knows because they can't drill down that deep. But they have been able to drill down deep enough to sample the mantle underneath the crust, and it's about 2,000 degrees, and that's the temperature of the lava that's coming out of the Hawaii volcano right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's you think it'd be deeper than that under the ocean, but it's not. It's expanding all the time, I guess.
Well, are you talking about the Mid-Atlantic and Mid-Pacific ridges?
Well, that I don't know. I don't know if they meant the surface of the ocean or the deepest part of the bottom of the deepest ocean.
Okay. What were they saying about this either surface or deepest part of the ocean?
They would say just 16 miles under it. It is so hot that they can't measure it. That the scientists said it was so hot that they couldn't measure it. They had no way of measuring it, the temperature.
Okay, well, without knowing where they were talking about, it's kind of hard to put this in context. But
right, if I remember, I would.
Obviously, they're able to measure the temperature of the lava coming out of the volcanoes here on the surface, and using robotic vehicles, they're able to get pretty close to erupting volcanoes on the floor of the ocean. So I'm not sure. Anyway, listen, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go and switch over to Mark in Georgia. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Mark, are you there? Okay, I guess we lost Mark. Let's try David in California. Aloha, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, thank you. I was revisiting an article by Harold Wallace Rosenthal, who was a worker for Jacob Javits, who said, let the floodgates open up. And basically what Rosenthal was revealing to this, he was paid by this patriot to do the interview, and he was exposing the Zionists, and he was one himself. And he basically said that the immigration, they learned a lot. The Zionists and the bankers and stuff learned a lot when they had the Third Reich, who the economists there had a different money system, and it went off the Federal Reserve system. And so they learned a lesson that if you keep a group together, they can outwit or whatever, stand up against the bankers and the funny money system. And a good point, in fact, is the recent point is Iceland. That's pretty much Scandinavian people in general. And yeah, so basically, I'm just saying part of the immigration is done in purpose to have us all fighting and stuff, so the bankers can still do their craft. And also, was I going to say? The good Jews around the world internationally, like for instance in southern Sweden, should stand up against the Soroses and Barbara Specter of Sweden, who was originally American, and people like that. Different rabbis are saying it's great that the immigration is happening to get back the karma or whatever they're, that Christians, different people like that, reaped on the Jewish people, which I'm sure some of that's true. But what I'm saying is I hope the good Jews stand up to the ones, some of their Jewish so-called leaders that are causing strife, like in Malbo, like in Paris, many Jews are leaving because of the extreme element of Islam is picking on Jewish people.
Well,
so.
Good people need to stand up to bad people. We don't need to confine it to one particular group here.
I agree with you.
You need to remember.
I totally agree.
You need to remember that it is part of the Jewish faith that you are not allowed to publicly criticize a fellow Jew. So that is a built-in, if you will, safety device. Anyway, David, we're going to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll get back with more news and more phone calls after these few words.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75% dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat, very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Some have maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And we're going to take another phone call. John in British Columbia, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello. Well, it's like this, that George Soros,
Yes.
he's been paying out money to call for these people to go and riot.
Yep.
Isn't there a law there somewhere that says you can't, to incite riots is a criminal offense?
Yeah, there is.
No. Well, I guess nobody wants to do anything about it.
No, they don't want to do anything about it. And the open issue is to what extent Soros is actually working for the deep state, because we now know that a lot of the money he has been spending is not his own, but is being provided with generous government grants full of U.S. taxpayer dollars. So Soros may be used as a front for intelligence operations the way Howard Hughes was.
Oh, yeah. One other thing was, I don't know who said it or when, but somewhere along the line I heard somebody made a statement that Israel will be the creator of its own demise.
Yes.
Now, I don't know who said it, but the way they're going, I think that could happen, and not soon enough for my liking.
I would agree with you on that one. The issue with any falling empire, though, is not having them lash out at their neighbors in their death throes, which is a real danger when you have a nuclear-armed state. But you're absolutely right. The way that Israel is behaving is abominable. And even the Israeli people, I think, have had enough of the corruption and crime and the fact that the Israeli government actions at the border of Gaza are reflecting badly on Israelis around the world. And I don't think they want to stand there and continue to see the condemnation of the world come on in. Now, Israel's government is out there trying to claim that the people of Israel are wholeheartedly behind these massacres and these atrocities. I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
Oh, I don't either.
Yeah, because Jewish people and Israelis I've known myself personally, they're not like that. Yeah, this kind of an attitude of we're just going to kill these people with exploding bullets, that comes from the top. That comes from the politicians. That comes from the sociopaths.
Well, I assume they have elections there. Is there some way that they could vote Netanyahu out, or did they drop that fraudulent charge?
No, supposedly he's about to be indicted, but it's just sitting there and nothing's happening. And you would have to assume that Israel's elections are just as crooked as those here in the United States of America, and that the Israeli people don't have any chance of voting themselves in a better government any more than the American people do.
Well, it's a sad situation. I think the rest of the world better pay attention because, whatever they want to do, they'll come over here next. Whatever country they want to attack or do or corrupt or take over.
Well, what Israel wants, at least in the immediate future, is they want from the Nile to the Euphrates, the Israel that's described in the Torah. That's what they keep saying that they want. They want a third temple, even though they've actually had a third temple. But the Messiah didn't show up, so they said, well, it wasn't really the third temple, it was a remodel. Again, Israel is a theocracy. And a theocracy armed with nuclear weapons, and that is a very, very dangerous thing.
Yeah, I agree. It just, I guess I get dumbfounded in the fact that they can go and do whatever they want, where they want, and everybody just lets it slide.
Well, it's not a case of everybody letting it slide. I mean, the United Nations Security Council keeps trying to pass resolutions against Israel, but the U.S. always blocks them. The United States is Israel's enabler, and again, that reflects badly on all Americans, that we are being judged as being part of the problem with what's going on in Gaza. Some of that blood from the Bloody Monday massacre falls on the U.S. government, and it does make us look bad in the eyes of the world.
Well, I was thinking here a couple of days back that, you know, because the United States always wants to put sanctions on everybody. What would happen if China decided we're not selling you anything anymore? I mean, just they sell to everybody in the world, and if they just cut the U.S. off, then we're not selling to you at all, anything.
Yep.
If you don't stop supporting Israel.
You might see something like that. I mean, the rest of the world is certainly getting very angry over the U.S. throwing its economic weight around with all these tariffs and sanctions. You could actually see something like that. But something, though, that you need to understand is ours is not the only government that is infiltrated with Israeli agents. We have seen that demonstrated, well, over in Great Britain, where Al Jazeera did get to air their documentary on the Israel lobby in Great Britain. So it's hard to get the world to stand up to Israel when Israel is covertly running so much of it. Anyway, John.
Yeah, well, I was listening to an article here the other day.
Okay, John. John, stay on the line. We've got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org. So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MiGrelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MiGrelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MiGrelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read a few from Amazon.com. Dr. Sam Serino reviewed the Extendivite product. Good ingredients, feeling much better since taking product. It seems that the tablets work well. Once again, thank you for your product. My acid reflux has really improved thanks to the Extendivite. Together with my thumb joints, the pain is gone and I'm able to grip things much better. My friend has peripheral arterial disorder and their lower legs were hurting in a red color, but thankfully, there has been a significant improvement. Kind regards, Janice. My husband feels a big difference using Extendivite. Thank you. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite. We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down Gaza tonight. Women and children.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to go back to the phones. Mateus in Canada, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Mateus?
Hey.
There you are.
So, so Merkel announced a new national vegetable mascot to symbolize renewed German political growth in Europe. And can you guess the name of the vegetable?
I have no idea.
Brussels sprouts.
Okay.
Okay. So I got an idea how to save the pensions.
Good.
Okay, I don't know where you live, but where I live, every time you drive by a government-funded road project, it's just like 3 supervisors watching 5 people look at one guy in a hole, right?
Okay.
Isn't that the same everywhere? Or,
I'm sorry, I was temporarily distracted. Can you repeat that again?
okay, I'm just regarding the gross inefficiency of how taxpayer money is spent fixing the roads.
Yes.
That's everywhere. It's not just Canada, right?
Well, I can't speak for the entire world. I'm sure that there are places in this world where the roads are really well maintained. I remember the Top Gear episode they shot over in Dubai with the supercars. Those were beautiful streets and roads. I do know that here in Hawaii, we've got the worst roads in the United States.
I'm talking about the efficiency of repairing them, right? Like they close off the street for 3 or 4 days, and then they get like 6 or 7 people, and they get a whole bunch of hardware, and nothing is really happening, and it's just a big joke, right? That's happening everywhere, I'm assuming.
Okay, well, right now, especially down at Kamehameha Highway, with all the light rail construction, it's kind of hard to know where construction leaves off and road repair picks up. But generally, the road patches around here are a one-day operation.
Oh, okay. Anyways, I was assuming that it was really extremely annoying for everybody everywhere that every time you drive by and there's new construction on the road or repair, that it's just a huge joke. Like, anyways, it is that way here. So
well, it certainly is with the light rail.
And a big waste of money is because they're worried about not spending enough money, and then next year their budget would be lowered. So they always bring like 5 times more people than they need and more hardware, and they drag it out all week long.
Yes.
So that they can spend the required amount of millions of dollars, so that next year they get their budget renewed and hopefully even bigger.
Yeah, that's a problem with all levels of government. In fact, I remember back when I worked at JPL was the same thing. When we got to the end of the fiscal year, we were told to just use up our computer time budget. Back then, we actually had to pay per second of computer operation. So you could just write whatever software you wanted, just goofy stuff, game stuff, but you had to use up that computer budget so that it wasn't cut the next year.
Yeah, okay, so here's the solutions of how we can save the pensions by just getting rid of inefficiency. And here's how you get rid of this inefficiency, is you say to the supervisor of these crews that they will personally pocket 10% of any savings of efficiency compared to the last 10 years running average. And then the workers themselves will get 2%. So you'll have an entirely motivated crew, and they won't hire lazy people anymore. They'll hire people that are motivated. Then the politicians then can use this as to get favor with the voters by saying, oh, hey, I was in charge of this legislation that passed this, and look, now I saved you taxpayers, 30% on your road crew last year. Rehire me. I care about the money, and look, we're putting this money to save the pension. So, and then the taxpayers are happy, and then the jobs get done faster, so there's less road congestion, there's less loss of the city being congested, and then there's less pollution with idling cars. It's like win, 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 win. There's no downside, and all it takes is just to do that.
Well, the problems I see with it are the fact that it isn't the workers out there on the road who are causing things to run slow and inefficient. It's the city managers above them who are the ones who are looking at their budget renewal for next year. So you would have to find some way to incentivize them to cut back on their own budget, and that's going to be a really, really tough sell. Then you've got to deal with the realities that all of these work crew positions are unionized, and the unions are very, very powerful. They're also basically control large blocks of voters, and no city manager and no politician wants to anger those unions because it means that they could...
But hold on, just one second here. I understand what you're saying, but that's where the money gets spread around. That's what I'm talking about, is that you take 10% of the savings and you spread that money around. You grease everybody's palms, except for the politician, but they get to use it as good publicity to get reelected. But everyone below the politician, everyone who's got a paid job in the road construction part of City Hall and down, they're all greased. But it's okay, we're bribing them, but it's okay because we're only bribing them with 10% of the savings, which means that for every $1 million we're bribing them with, there's $9 million less wasted taxpayer money, and then put that over and pay for the pensions or something.
Well, we don't have to call it a bribe. We can simply call it an incentive program, and there are such things in government where there are financial rewards for meeting certain goals in terms of productivity and cost savings. Over time, though, they generally tend not to work, and this gets back on to the fact that those road crews are unionized, and the longer they stay out there, the more money they make. So it's a corrupt system. There's just no two ways about that.
Okay, fair enough. Are you out of talking points? One more topic or time to go?
I still have talking points. I just wanted a few phone calls. In fact, if you want to let get off the phone now, that would be fine as well.
Okay, have a good night. Thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And by the way, John in British Columbia, I'm sorry I forgot that you were on hold. If you want to call back in about that article that you read, we'll get you on the air and get that sorted out. So let's talk about computers and technology, because I'm very concerned that there are a lot of whiz-bang products and systems that are being put on out there into the marketplace prematurely, where the technology is not really robust, like the Tesla autopilot cars, and they're not really designed to be secure and safe. And this is a good example where these researchers from the University of Michigan, Key Alfred Chen and Z. Morley Mao, are working on these systems where smart cars can talk to each other. And when you get to a point where there are a lot of self-driving cars on the highway or on the streets, they're going to have to communicate with each other. And the research is showing that the current systems that are out there are very easy to trick. And just one car that is transmitting incorrect data can cause enormous traffic jams and easily be used to just shut down whole areas of the city. Now, this is actually an extension of something that was worked out many years ago, before the automated cars, before the smart cars and everything, when they were first starting to talk about acts of terror. And in Los Angeles, and they were looking at the freeway systems, and they had a research project. How many cars would it take to gridlock the entire Los Angeles freeway system? And they discovered it wouldn't take that many at all. In fact, it was less than 20 at key intersections, key transition roads, where the attackers would simply slow down, park the car crosswise, get out of the car, disable the car, walk away. That was it. This is just a new version of the same thing. Apparently, there's a concern the same thing could happen to shipboard systems in the English Channel. And there is this commonly used ship tracking technology apparently can be hacked to spoof the size and location of boats in order to trigger other vessels' collision alarms. And so now the call has gone on out for ship owners to upgrade their systems. Well, why weren't these issues addressed when these systems were being designed? It's not like we don't know that there are people of ill intent out there with access to computers, because there are. Story out of Russia Today, the Department of Homeland Security is saying that it's only a matter of time until someone succeeds in hacking a commercial aircraft. And DHS is saying most planes lack cybersecurity protections to prevent such a hack. Now, of course, the Wi-Fi systems that are in the cabin for your tablets and so forth, they are isolated from the cockpit flight control systems. But we do know that there are digital links, both to and from the aircraft, mostly for maintenance purposes. And apparently, they're open to hacking. It's like all this stuff is put out there. And like we're hearing all these horror stories of the Internet of Things devices that are being hacked into. Just because there are malicious people out there who want to be able to go on in and just do things like turn your lights on in the middle of the night. Apparently over at the Atlanta police, they got hit by ransomware. They weren't apparently able to get it disarmed in time, and they've lost years of video evidence gathered by dash cams. And most of the lost evidence involved dash cam recordings, and the footage was lost and cannot be recovered. Apparently, the city of Atlanta did not have a backup system for this. Now, about 1/3 of all software used by city agencies and departments is believed to have been affected by the attack. This took place in March. They're just coming out with it now. And again, why is something not being done about this? Cybercrime is just rampant right now. Cisco is apparently sounding the alarm that this VPN filter router malware is actually a lot worse than everybody thought. And apparently it's affected ASUS, D-Link, Huawei, Ubiquiti, Upvel, and ZTE. These are the vendors newly named by Cisco's Talos Intelligence as being exploited by the VPN filter malware. And the software nasty has been spotted hitting endpoints behind the vulnerable kit. And Talos is warning that VPN filter now attacks endpoints behind the firewall and sports a poison pill to brick an infected network device if necessary. When it was first discovered, VPN filter was spotted in 500,000 devices, but only Soho devices from Linksys, MikroTik, Netgear, TP-Link, and QNAP storage kit. As well as the new vendors added to the list, Talos has said that more devices from Linksys, Netgear, and TP-Link are affected. And to date, all the vulnerable units are consumer grade or Soho grade. So again, it's a completely out of control system. And some of it is obviously organized crime, like the ransomware. Some of it is data theft. And some of it is just plain mean malice. Just people who want that sense of empowerment by being able to wreck somebody else's computer systems. Because they think it's cool. They've seen it on TV shows and movies. Whip out your little smartphone and bring down an entire computer building. Apparently over at the British bank TSB, they were trying to do an IT migration, and apparently they didn't have things worked out in advance correctly, because about 1,300 people have had their accounts emptied. And they had to wait 9 hours on the phone to try and resolve the issues. Waiting 9 hours on the phone, that's a very, very long time. And they're saying that the levels of attacks increased 70 times, with scammers sending phishing calls, emails, and texts purporting to be TBS and asking them to verify their bank details. So somebody was paying attention, and when the IT migration was botched or hacked, the scammers went to work on it. Said, we're from your bank, we know there's a problem, give us your banking details. And just emptied their accounts. Should never, ever, ever, ever give your banking details over the phone or text message. 'Tis the season of the scammer here. Over at Facebook, they have finally decided to get rid of trending news, which very often was being tinkered with and rigged, so that the only trending news was what was officially approved, and anything that was trending that was not approved would get relegated to the basement. They're getting rid of that because everybody now knows it was being tinkered with, and now they have a rating system based on pre-approved publishers. In other words, the pre-approved publishers, meaning Newsweek, Washington Post, New York Times, and so forth and so on, they will be at the top of the search results, and everybody else who's not approved, like, well, whatreallyhappened.com, will be down at the bottom. Facebook has apparently decided they're going to start funding their own news programming, including CNN's Anderson Cooper. So they've gone full circle from being a reporting institute. Now they're going to actually be producing the news itself. Alrighty, we're coming up here on our last commercial of the day. We have one caller sitting on the line. We're going to take that phone call after we come back from these words from our sponsors. So please stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective, and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins. heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of the program today. And we're going to take a phone call from Ken in Fort Worth. Aloha, Ken. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Howdy, howdy. Hey, you know that somebody said over in Europe that they had their Tesla car started up on its own and drove into a bunch of parked cars. Are they hacking those cars?
You know, I wondered after that one that maybe one of Tesla's competitors might be doing that because it's one thing to have a couple of goofs, but for that one, for the car to just start up and put itself in gear and drive into these other cars, to me, that doesn't feel like a legitimate accident. I do think Tesla is being hacked.
That's why it makes any sense. Like a bowling ball run down, like hit you a strike. You don't even touch the ball. It's something's fishy.
Yes. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
Later.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. Getting on back to the news here, and let's see. There we are. Apparently, scientists at MIT did an experimental project. They have this AI machine, and they basically decided to see what would happen if they only showed it captions from disturbing images posted on Reddit. And I don't know what they were trying to do, but what they basically got was a psychopathic AI. And it does illustrate the dangers of AI that's self-learning, is you don't know what's going on in there. You're not constantly monitoring what the AI is doing. It's like having a small child. They could be getting into things that you don't think they should and forming some opinions that are not in the best interests of either the AI or human beings. So I don't know what they were doing over there, but it's an interesting academic exercise. I have to give them that. But I do think they need to be careful. We could very easily be creating our evolutionary successors on this planet, which does not diminish my appreciation for Westworld. And BBC is bringing back humans, for those of you who've got BBC America. Meanwhile, there is a new chip war going on, like we saw in the 1990s, and basically Intel has just released a 28-core chip, which the company says will be deliverable by the end of the year. And the next day, AMD announced what they're calling Threadripper 2 with 32 cores and 64 threads. These are supercomputers on a chip. And that's actually pretty amazing performance. It really is. Okay, apparently over at the Federal Transit Administration, which is actually part of the TSA, they've made a decision that they want to keep public transit safety records a secret. Maybe there are more accidents happening than anybody knows about. There's the music. Time for me to get on out of here, get something useful done with the rest of the day. Please stay tuned for John Stedmill. Well, John Stedmill's show. I don't know who's taking the microphone. And please take what you learn here at the radio show and whatreallyhappened.com. Share it with everybody that you know. Please donate and support us. We really do need the help. And we'll be back tomorrow with the Lady Claire. Aloha America. Apparently, Dr. Jennifer Daniels is filling in for John. Talk to you tomorrow.